Okay, so first of all, why are these movies still called Madagascar? None of this movie takes place in Madagascar. They're in Africa for like 5 minutes, then Monte Carlo for like 10, then the rest of the film takes place on a train, and then Rome, and then America. It's like if I called a movie An American Tale, Fievel Goes to Canada, or Alaska, this movie really takes place in Great Britain, and then set half of the film in Australia. Yeah, I know I'm nitpicking, but you know what? I seriously don't know where to start with this movie. This film somehow manages to have no build-up whatsoever. How do you even do that? If you have no build-up in a movie, then you have no payoff. If you have no payoff, then who the fuck gives a shit? Alright, sorry, professionalism. Once again, we join Alex and the other animals of the New York Zoo, who are still trying to get home apparently. This time, in order to do so, they hitch a ride with a traveling circus, which the penguins promptly buy with the money they won in Monte Carlo, or jewels, because the penguins have jewels. The circus is scheduled to perform in front of a talent scout who will then decide whether or not to sign a contract with them to perform in New York. Unfortunately, after buying it, they find out that the circus is awful and they have to come up with a new act to wow the American talent scout. Well, I was watching this movie going in between periods of being admittedly amused and then confused and bored and then irritated with the woman with the high-pitched laugh 4 chairs down, who apparently found everything in this movie absolutely hilarious. I realized something. I had no idea what the fuck was going on. This movie sets itself up as one of those underdog stories, only this time with a circus instead of a sports team or whatever, minus any of the satisfaction you get from watching the journey and watching them train and gradually get better, because this movie has so many plot lines and characters fighting for screen time that it jumps from plot point to plot point and is reduced to a series of loud, climactic moments where any kind of story that might have been introduced takes backseat to random humor, pop culture references, abstract rave-like music videos to Katy Perry songs, and for some reason, French opera. When I reviewed Madagascar, I mentioned that I thought it was missing something. Well, if Madagascar lacked that extra element to make it a good movie, then Madagascar 3 overdoes it. It seems like the writers hit a wall within the first 10 minutes when they realized they need to get the main characters from Africa to Monte Carlo as quickly as possible. They solved the problem by pretty much ignoring it. It's almost puzzling enough that I was reminded of cartoons like Invader Zim, joking about how they just had an amazing journey off screen.
Incredible and daring escape! That was amazing!
I like the part when the giant robot squid launched missiles at us.
The fuck did these animals get to Monte Carlo? And that's just one example. This movie never takes any time to explain or flesh out anything. Don't take a bathroom break during it, because chances are, once you come back, the characters are now in a completely different country, and for some reason a lemur is hitting on a bear. And this right here is where most of my issues with this film lie. Rather than actually making an attempt to create something memorable or different, DreamWorks has basically just tacked together fragments of a story to something that is essentially just a lot of noise and color. Now, to be fair, this movie at its best is actually pretty funny. I remember there were a handful of things that made me laugh, and it does have a lot of that random humor that seems pretty popular in most modern cartoons. Unfortunately, while I do enjoy that in cartoons, I expect a little more structure in something that spans an hour and a half. Because of this lack of substance, it's really difficult to pinpoint standout moments. Even when I acknowledge that I was at least amused some of the time, the film is just so busy that it's really difficult to sit back and enjoy some of the better jokes, because it basically never lets you get your bearings long enough to settle in and enjoy them. Another thing to note, and you can kind of take this as a compliment to the film, but honestly it's mostly a criticism, I really liked the circus animals. The seal, the tiger, and the leopard, they were actually interesting. The only scenes I remember standing out from this movie were the scenes dealing with them. I was way more interested in their backstory and the backstory of the circus than I was about Alex and our other main characters still trying to get back to New York. There's like no further character development with these characters. We don't see any new insights into their relationships apart from the fact that Melman can't dance. I want to know about the circus animals. I really liked those guys. Make the movie about them. And I guess, to a lesser degree, the same goes with Dubois, because she too might have been more interesting, or at least some fun as a villain, given the fact that she was a complete and utter psycho, had she been on screen for more than a few minutes at a time. Instead, we have the penguins and the monkeys doing their thing, and Alex trying to get home and also trying to romance the leopard and trying to learn the trapeze, and the circus animals in their story, and Marty with the cannon, and Gloria and Melman doing their thing, and Dubois chasing after them, and the king and the romance with the bear, and it's really hard to give a fuck about anything that's going on because we don't spend very long with any one person or any one plot point. Alright, so 3D. Fuck, whatever. I guess if you're gonna see this movie, you might as well see it in 3D, as, trust me, you're not going to get a satisfying story out of it. There's a big gimmicky rave-like scene with lights and flipping and defying gravity, all set to Katy Perry's damn Fireworks song, and stuff like that is pretty much made for 3D, or at least made for the kind of 3D I hate, so I guess if you're gonna waste your money on this movie, you might as well spend the extra few dollars on the glasses. In closing, despite the fact that this movie does have some decent humor, and despite the fact that some of the characters are pretty interesting, there's just way too much going on. Because of this, everything that's good is buried under a frantic, over-the-top, colorful mess of a narrative and is therefore lost in the chaos.
I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to